Welcome to Aspen Affairs. I'm Alycin Bektesh, Public Affairs Manager with the Aspen Chamber Resort Association. I have with me today two of our most seasoned civic leaders in the area, Pitkin County Commissioner Patti Clapper and Aspen City Council Mayor Torre. Thank you both for joining me.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
So this year, the Aspen Chamber Resort Association is focusing on building civic capacity, both in our membership and throughout the community. That begins with the April 24th Business Outlook Forum, Finding Your Civic Voice. Ahead of that, we're excited to bring in Patti and Torre, who are both exemplars of going from engaged citizen to elected leader. We want to hear more about these journeys and how others can get involved and follow those footsteps. We're going to start by defining what we're talking about here today. I'm going to ask both of you, Torre, I'll start with you. What does community engagement mean to you?
Participating in any form. I always talk about you don't have to be elected to be effective.
Nice.
So, no matter what it is, whether it's writing letters to the editor, attending meetings, going to community gatherings, just talking to other members of the community, whatever it is, just participating. That is community engagement to me.
Wonderful. Patti, I have that same question for you as we kind of frame this conversation.
Well, community engagement, is that, it really starts with passion and commitment and caring about our community. And I love it, and I think Torre and I can agree on this totally. When people come in, whether they're for the issue or against the issue, the fact they've taken the time to participate is what makes our community and makes us stand out from communities around the country, around the world.
And you both truly are the longest serving, I think, civic leader on your respective bodies. So it seems like second nature. Of course, you're up here talking about this. I want to go back to the days before you knew what running for an elected office meant, what it meant to be part of a commission or a board or get involved. So let's talk about maybe early Torre. What were some things when you got to Aspen? What was sparking what would become a mayor of Aspen in you?
It's crazy that you even say that, but first of all, you got to understand that I've kind of always been interested. I was raised to be a participant in democracy, and knowing that that is what makes democracy work. So then, arriving here in Aspen 30 years ago, I, like so many people, was so busy working multiple jobs and just finding my way and trying to be a positive person in the community. When I moved here, it became apparent very early to me that you were really only worth what you brought to the table. And as I used to say, a-holes didn't make it in Aspen. If you weren't truthful, if you weren't honest, and if you weren't respectful, you probably weren't going to make it in Aspen. So I started with that, just being a member of the community, trying to do good work, and learning what being a contributing member meant. Then, 10 years into being here in Aspen, there were some issues going on. One of them being the entrance to Aspen.
Really?
Yep. Funny that we just had a meeting about that Monday. But the entrance to Aspen was up for debate, up for some direction from the seated council at the time. I had some questions around that, as well as some other issues, and it sparked my interest. I started coming to city council meetings to hear the dialogue that was going on in the room. And a few months later, I remember I woke up one morning and I called the city clerk and I said, "What does it take to run for mayor?" And Catherine Cook at the time said, "You have to come in and get a petition and get it filled out by 25 members of the electorate." I said, "Is that it?" She said, "Yep." I said, "I will see you in 30 minutes. And I went down, I got my petition, and I ran for mayor to be involved. The best part of that first campaign for me was all the research that I did. I met with staff members on every issue. I met with community members on every issue. I attended the city council meetings. I did a ton of homework in preparation for running. And of course, I didn't win that election, but that really set me up for 2 years later to win a city council seat.
So your initial toe in the water was sitting in the room, just watching those council meetings, being present. Was there a time when you made public comment? Was there a spark that let you know one person could make a difference or have some impact?
Actually, I was watching and observing others that were in the room. You know, highly charged issues, things like the ARC, the rec center being built, the entrance to Aspen, and other projects that were going on there. The room was already full of people that were involved and engaged. So I was really learning from them. I think my first public comment was probably on the rec center. I was supportive of the project, but I thought that there could have been some more environmental aspects built into the building, and so I was advocating for that.
All right. Patti, let's go to you too. I know you got involved with some advocacy and some issues that were dear to your heart as well that then inspired what became your political career. Can we hear those early days?
Yes, it was Superfund, which started me in this role I've been in for quite some time. And I believe it was an issue of passion. It was an issue literally close to my heart. I lived in the site. I had a young son. I was pregnant with my daughter, Tracy. And so that's what kind of got me involved, attending meetings, seeing how the government worked, or in many cases didn't work, and getting frustrated with trying to be involved in an issue and was I being heard or not being heard. So that's what started me off. And I also learned that compromise is not a four-letter word. It's actually sometimes you have to be able to give up a little to get most of what you want in the end. And that was a lot of learning lessons. And trust me, doing your homework is key, because when you're sitting there trying to get a point across and you have your facts, not just innuendos, but you have facts, or you can give them back their own information and say, but wait a minute, your report here said this. And, you know, that got me a long way. It actually got me into my next step, which was being appointed to Planning and Zoning Commission, which is kind of a tough one to jump right into, but I did. And as Leslie Lamont said, she was one of the commissioners who appointed me. We never had anybody interview quite like you. And I'm like, well, let's see how it goes. And I was just talking with Lance Clark, who used to work in community development, and he said, oh, I remember when you came on board, you asked more questions than anybody. And because I would read the packets. So again, it's education. You know, you can't really be involved unless you really know the issue, all sides of the issue. And then after a few years on planning and zoning, the District 1 seat for the commission, Board of Commissioners, was open because Bill Toot had retired. And so I thought, well, you know, I know what it's like to be on one side of the table. I want to carry that through to the other side so that the community feels like they're being heard. So that's when I decided to run, and I barely won my first campaign because I had no clue how to run a campaign. I was winging it. And but I was out there on the street talking to people, going to whatever anybody would invite me to, and just talking from my heart, and and saying this is, and I know the public right now is having a hard time believing that we listen to them, but I think speaking for City Council and for the BOCC, we do listen, but we have to listen to all sides, and that's a tough one. So I encourage people to become passionate, to volunteer for committees and commissions, and then run. And as we talked about earlier, I'm not saying run necessarily for office or run away from office, but it's important if you really want to be effective, be part of the solution, whether it be from the volunteer side or from the elected side.
And what did you learn about how citizens could get involved with government decision-making through the Superfund work or some of your early days? Well,
and it happened definitely in Superfund. We came in because I was living there, and then when they were really going to come in and dig, we got really, we woke up to what was happening. And they were like, well, it's the 11th hour. And I'm like, it's not the 12th. We still have time. And, you see that. And I think Torre will agree. You see people coming in at the last minute. You're like, where were you? Sometimes it takes that, oh, my God, it's really here. It's really going to happen. It's not just, oh, they're going to talk about it for another 10 years. So that's the thing, is to get involved early on, because if your chances of really making a difference start at the beginning, it's really hard to make a difference if you start at the end.
We know how both of your stories end very successfully, so I'm going to pause and ask for some setback questions first before it's all rosy. So, Torre, you mentioned you didn't win your first campaign that you ran, and Patti, maybe there was some compromise. You didn't get everything you wanted out of those early days, but was there value in those kind of early setbacks as well? What did you learn from those?
Well, first of all, my election record here in Aspen is still a losing record. I am 5-6. So I didn't just lose the first election that I ran for. I've lost many since. Persistence. I will tell you though, my goal this whole time, even though I've run for mayor 6 times, before I won, five losses on my 6th time I won the mayorship. It wasn't about being mayor. It was about doing the work that you can do through the office of mayor. And so that was really my ambition the entire time. So I just continued to stay in the room, stay in the conversation, and try to enjoy it. Right? It's not all fighting. It doesn't have to be about fighting. It's about working together. It's about compromising. It's about finding the best fit for our community. So that doesn't have to be a battle. And we talk about winning and losing, but truly, I impacted what I wanted to impact, even in elections that I didn't win the office. And I was going to ask Patti, as a matter of fact, same, when you weren't in office and you were doing work on the Superfund site, did you feel like you were effective?
10 years later, yeah. Talk about persistence.
Yeah, but that's amazing. And I think that's what it takes, is just stay in there, stay engaged.
Yeah, I remember my first trip to Washington, D.C. to fight for Superfund, and I'd never been there, and I'd never really traveled. I'm a West Coast girl and Western States girl, and it was quite the experience. And I had to borrow clothes from my neighbors because I didn't have enough dress-up clothes to go to D.C. So you learn a lot. And my record, can I go? My record is 6-0. Because I've run 6 times for the Board of County Commissioners, 3 times, and then took a term off because of term limits, and came back my last election. By the grace of whoever was watching over me, I ran unopposed for the first time. And I'll tell you what, that was, then I could concentrate on the election itself. And I still went to events and still, did debates, but they put me in the corner, well, we don't really need to hear from you. Well, you're going to hear from me anyway. Talk, again, right? Persistence.
Yeah.
But, and it's people who are always say, well, you must have a tough skin and you must be, really hardcore. And I'm like, I cry all the time, and I'm known for that. People are like, she didn't cry at that meeting. Something must be wrong, because you get so involved in hearing the stories of the community and trying to come up with what works for both sides or all sides, because sometimes there's more than 2 sides, and reaching across the aisle or the table and the dais or whatever, you want to talk to people. But yeah, it's been hard. I remember the first time people questioned what are you doing to your life? And I said, well, we're going to see what happens. And then from then on, and now people are like, well, you can't leave. I'm like, I'm done in a couple of years here. And they're like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm still going to live around the corner, so, because I have people stop me anywhere, up and down the valley now, to ask me questions or give me their points of view. And I remember my kids when they were really young, after I got elected that first term or second term, saying, my son saying to my daughter, you don't want to go to the grocery store with Mom. It takes her hours. Because you couldn't even go down the bread aisle without somebody, And that's just part of it. And that's sometimes you wish you could, but you kind of come home. If you aren't asked a question, you're like, God, nobody asked me a question at the grocery store. So you feel kind of abandoned,
So both of you, the kind of impetus, even through those scary moments of going to D.C. or just like, do I know enough to be part of this? It was passion inside. You love the community. You believed that we should all be involved and aware. And I have that same question actually about the 2 sides of the table. You both mentioned this, like which side is more effective? So since you kind of brought this up, I'll go to you first, Torre. Once you're in office, do you just get to wave the wand and make all the rules, and so you're the most effective there because you're in power? Or is that other side bringing the conversation, whether you get your way or not, letting other people know that this conversation could be more intricate than we're seeing? Is that where the effectiveness happens? Which side is the effective side?
I think it's different for different people. I'm an elected representative, so my job, as I see it, is to get input from my community about what the majority of my community sees as the best path forward and make decisions based on that. So whether somebody is one of the five of us sitting at the council table or not, I'm listening to their opinion and their voice. I think that people can be effective without being elected. I think that it is the job of electeds to ensure that that happens, because there's only five of us sitting up at the table. So we need to tap into the smartest and the most in tune with issues. Right? You've got to get subject matter experts in every area, and I'm not on every item that we see, and we see such a variety. So. The people that are impacting issues are not necessarily just the five that are sitting at a council table or at the county commissioner table. It's your team, right? It's your staff, but it's also the general public as well. Everybody has an opportunity to be effective.
And Patti, you said it was important to you to sit on both sides of the table. So when you went to that other side, what did you learn was going on there that you didn't know when you were speaking from the citizen side?
What I had no idea when I first got elected what the Board of Commissioners, what they do, what I do now, what I've done. It is, and that was the hardest thing for me, and that's why, and what Torre said, I think sometimes being on the non-elected side of the table, you can be more effective because you can totally focus that passion and that from the heart and education on one issue. Whereas the BOCC, we manage so much. People are like, what don't you do? Should be the question, and you have to know a little bit or a lot about so many issues that sometimes it's overwhelming, and you wish you could can I just concentrate on just the airport or just the landfill or just road and bridge, but you can't, and so. That's why people think we just go to meetings twice a week. It's 24/7. There's always something catches your eye, or you get an email, or you get an article, and it's always a learning. And I think my background as a nurse, nurses learn all the time, every day. And I think that's one of the things that people need to really understand and appreciate. When you are in elected office, you're learning all the time. And so it's hard when the public comes in, and well, actually, it's not hard. I like when the public comes in and they give us more information about a specific issue, because that's our learning curve, is the public helps us get through these things. And I think at the end of the day, we come up with better solutions, we come up with better decisions when it's based on the full plate of options and opportunities.
Patti, you spoke before about how special our community is here, that we do have a ton of engagement. We have a lot of opinions. We have a lot of people who aren't worried about saying them. 3 free news outlets daily, right? So there should be a lot of engagement. Have you seen a transition in how people were involved when you were first getting involved? Torre, you as well. I mean, hour-long public comment before a city council meeting would start 10 years ago, and now are people as engaged? Are you hearing from the public in the same way as previous? Or what is the Aspen community engagement environment now?
We get a lot, the Board of Commissioners, we get a lot of, right up until we vote sometimes, letters that come through through the new technology. And we get people calling in, some people call in and just watch the meetings, and they don't want to, and I think that's a great opportunity for people, especially with the the topography, and you got Redstone, you got Thomasville, and everybody can tune in. And then we get a lot of comments after the fact, between maybe first and second reading, or just after second reading, saying, you guys made the right decision, or you guys were clueless, and but I think that's increased the public's opportunities. I really like when they're in person, because I go to meetings in person. I'm a body language, and I love watching the room. Oh, they didn't like that comment. They just went, or oh, they liked that one, and and I just like that interaction, that personal interaction, and I miss a lot of that with the new technology. I liked it when the room was packed and they weren't just, okay, who's online? Then there's always the technological glitches, and you're like, oh, God, I thought we worked that one out. But it's definitely changed with new technology. And it's different, but it's how things are going to be, and we just need to figure out how to best deal with it.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. The technology, social media, and the opportunity for people to have their own blogs or email blasts and all that stuff has come about really in the last decade. And I think what it's done is it's given people the opportunity to stay out of the room. So there is maybe greater separation. And I agree with Patti 100%. The way to do it is to be in the room still. that talk about being effective. You're most effective when you're in the room.
Yep. On both sides. For my board members and for the public members, I think it's most effective.
Are people as engaged? Do they know the issues as well? Do they know all the history that led up to why you're voting on this today? Have they been keeping up to date?
I think there's more information out there than ever. However, some of it is good information and some of it's bad. And when you're having kind of what I call one-way conversations over the internet, that's a hard line to decipher. I would say, I think right now I'm probably seeing a little less engagement. There's probably a more vocal or engaged minority, but I don't think that there's a greater majority that is really engaged.
I just remember, even as a reporter, you had your 5 people who were going to talk no matter what. You had your go-to people who come to every meeting, and they're going to say each of their 3 minutes. And then if other people are coming in for their first time or on an issue specific, you really did have 30 minutes to an hour of just hearing from the public before you started hearing from the elected officials. And I don't see that anymore. So I don't know if people are more intimidated to speak to your bodies, or they think it's on a good path and they don't need to, or...
Let's go with that one.
Yeah, I'll take that one too. I think, and there is a lot of information out there, and like Torre said, there's some right information and some information that's not quite right. And so it's because there's so much information, and it's hard. I'm finding it really hard this last year or so, trying to get people to really believe elected officials. I mean, it's a feeling around the country, if not around the world. They don't want to trust the government, and I feel that way at some levels too. But I want people to know that I'm not, because I'm so soft-hearted, I'm not really good at not telling the truth. I get caught, like they used to say about my son, he wasn't good at being bad. So I think that's a big issue, is trying to get people to say, I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you, I'm understanding it, but please listen back. That's a tough one to get across to the public these days. But the other thing, I think there's a comfort level with people. They might be, some people come in and they're really nervous coming for the BOC, and I'm like, we're just members of the public. We're just like you. No, you're a county commissioner. Oh, get over it, And I don't want to walk into a room at a party and go, oh, the commissioner's here. I'm like, I'm not looking at your land use codes. I'm not seeing if there's anybody. I'm here because you invited me to dinner, And, I can still have friends and be part of this community at all levels. And I think that people who get involved need to understand that there's going to be a lot of people that will agree with them and a lot of people who don't, but that's part of this civic involvement and engagement, is we need to hear from all of that. I think it's key to having a good government, to having this solid community, and I think we lost a lot of that community base, be it COVID or just being politics or just being the world, and I'm really hoping that we can start to get that community feeling back again.
I should point out that you both also serve your time on the ACRA Board of Directors, so you are in tune with businesses. You get monthly updates on kind of how all the different sectors are doing. I'm curious what you think the role of business in public engagement is. Like, do businesses have a role coming and speaking during policy discussions? What do you think, Torre?
Absolutely. Again, it's all voices. So business leadership and business advocacy is one voice, but it should be at the table, without a doubt. Our economy and the livelihoods of the people that live here, and the ramifications of that, right? Housing, food supply, I mean, you name it, cost of living here. So all of that ties into the economy of our area, so business must have a seat at the table, as others should as well.
For me, it was a real eye-opener when I first started sitting on the ACRA board, because, Pitkin County doesn't have a lot of retail. We don't have the business cores like the municipalities do. So I find it fascinating. And what I really appreciate most about the Aspen Chamber is that they want the county to be involved. They want to hear from the county because of the overlap of some of the issues or the overflow of some of the issues. And I think that's really key. And I bring that back and share it with my board when we do, sorry, I keep hitting my, when we do our board updates. I always say, and this might not really affect us, but it does affect us.
Right.
The whole business thing. And I think the business community should be, even if you don't vote in Pitkin County or you don't vote in Colorado and you have a business here, you need to be part of it.
You know, it's also the conversation has changed, right? The chamber, but as well, our businesses are not just after the dollar. They are looking after the community as well. So, you know, engagement in community issues, absolutely. And it's been fascinating to watch the pivot that we've all had to do. Everybody, no matter what organization you're in some way, you're involved in housing.
Yes.
Right? And the same with the chamber. No matter what industry you're in some way impacted by our tourist-based economy. So, you know, these business decisions, they have ripple effects throughout other areas of our community. They all impact quality of life. And so it's been really refreshing that the chamber and businesses, individual businesses, are really looking holistically at our community and not just bottom line economics.
We're going to close with some ways that people can effectively speak to you directly or your boards, but I want to start that conversation by pointing out the position you're in. So you can hear public comment and still vote against what the public comment said. And you can hear public comment, like you said, from so many different perspectives that you're going to disappoint someone. So I want to encourage our viewers to become more involved, be in that room, speak up their own personal experience without over-promising that means all of a sudden you're the decision maker as the person making public comment. So can you speak to that a little bit? So you're not, it's worth coming to the table even if you don't get your way.
Absolutely. You want to move the needle, as we say all the time. As Patti was talking about, compromise and finding the best path for everybody requires that all voices are putting some input into it. I want to say right now that, you know, for an email address for the City Council is council@aspen.gov. That's one easy avenue for you to put your input in, and you know we get those emails and we enter those into the public record, but also just take that information in. All input is valuable, and most often voices are kind of maybe against a direction that, because that's when people, you're not going to hear from people that are like, I totally support what you're doing. You're going to hear from people that say, I think you should tweak it a little this way or that way. So it's vital that those voices are heard.
Yeah, and I carry business cards with me all the time, pretty much, because people will stop me and want to give me, and I'm like, you know, I'll forget when I get home. You want me to, so send me a text or send me an email and just say, remember our conversation, give me your contact information, and I'll get back to you. But I think however people are comfortable, they know the Board of Commissioners, and I'm going to speak for your council and for you, Mr. Mayor. We read the stuff we get because it's important. That, for me, it's that people took the time to participate. They took the time to sit down and to say, you know, this is my concern. Thank you for speaking with me. And the hardest part for me when I first got elected was really, really understanding you're not going to please all the people all of the time. But, you know, sometimes I come to my own table and know I'm not going to get my way. And it happens more often than people think, but I have to be careful, and I think the rest of my board, it's okay to disagree on all sides, because I think at the end of the day, disagreements handled correctly and kindly and nicely, and let's all play well in the sandbox together, as they say, end up with better decisions. And so we need to hear all those different factors in order to make the right decision.
People ask me all the time, you know, how can I take those long meetings, or how can I stand when, you know, a citizen steps up and maybe is a little offensive or a little abrasive, whatever it is. And, you know, when you're involved, and I keep looking at the word passion that Patti has written here. When you have passion for these issues and for the community, it's riveting. It's enjoyable. It's a total honor. Right, serving is an honor. So I think both of us do our best to bring our A game as much as we can, because we owe it to our community, but it's fulfilling as well.
Well, and the nurse in me, when we're at the table, I think the board needs snacks every once in a while. I see blood sugars drop and I see people get irritable. I think the whole room sometimes needs snacks or timeouts. So yeah, but it's been an amazing ride for me. I'm in my 22nd year, so in a couple of years it'll be 24, which I never would have imagined. That when I first got elected, I was like, Yeah, and so here I am, and it's going to be hard for me to leave. I love working for the county. I love working for the people, whether they're visitors or guests or young or old or agree with me or not. That's what makes Aspen and Pitkin County what we are. And I think people from around the country, around the state, around the country, around the world appreciate that when they get here, is our diversity and our wanting to be on the leading edge of things and not wanting to follow, but making a difference, in our own, borders, but outside our borders.
Okay, apart from not coming to meetings hangry, can I have 2 takeaways that someone can go, how do they make sure they're paying attention or know if things are affecting them? Or how could someone watching this right now make the next step to get involved in some way? So I'll start with you, Patti.
Well, I think it's amazing how many people watch the meetings that are on GrassRoots. And I'm going to put a big promo in. That is a huge way to educate the community. And people watch them in the middle of the night, and I'm like, oh my God. Well, either I fall asleep or I get up and have something to eat, But I think not just doing the newspapers, but watching meetings, talking to your neighbors, and thinking, okay, I'm just hearing about this. I'll just wait. Start your education process early
Okay.
as you can. And if you find after, well, you know what, I think I'm okay with this, it's okay to let your elected officials know. That's always nice when we get a thank you for disagreeing with me sometimes. Those are the best. But yeah, but it's your community. And Torre said, we are elected to represent the people of this community and what goes on in this community. And so we need to hear from this community.
My recommendation is to go online, check out our websites. Go to the Pitkin County website, go to the City of Aspen website, look for the agendas and the calendar of discussions that's going on, and then identify where your passion is, right? As Patti was saying, we deal with a myriad of issues across every area. But to get into it, you should probably start by just identifying 1 or 2 areas that is of interest and passion for yourself and follow up on that. And then I highly recommend getting in touch with a staff member at either the county or the city and have a conversation with them. Ask them for 30 minutes and just talk to them about the issues. Talk to them about what they do or how they do it. Just start learning.
A huge thank you to both Torre and Patti for your decades of service and for joining us on Aspen Affairs today. For a deep dive into ways you can get civically engaged, learn more about citizen boards and commissions in our area, and build your public speaking skills, join us at the Business Outlook Forum April 24th, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Aspen Institute. Tickets are available online at aspenchamber.org/BOF. I'm Alycin Bektesh. Thanks for watching.